Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Outcomes Podcast. I'm thrilled to be joined by Greg Hill and Carolyn Todaro from American Public University System and AMU, two leaders who have been at their institutions for a very long time. I'm thrilled to welcome both. Welcome, and Greg, would love to overview your background.
Sure. Thanks, James. Glad to be here. So I'm Greg Hill. I'm the Vice President of Enrollment Management here at American Public University System. In my role, I handle the service and enrollment of new students to the university. We work closely with our marketing teams and our tech development teams to ensure that our students have a great experience and matriculate to our current student body. I've been here for 19 years, and I'm proud to serve this population that we serve, and excited again, really excited to be here today to talk about it.
Thank you, Greg. And Carolyn, would love to hand it over to you for an intro.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I'm Carolyn Todaro. I'm the Vice President of Student Success for APUS. In my role, I lead a centralized academic advising department, and then I am also charged with implementing approaches and tactics that result in a improved student experience and also improved student success. I have been with the university also for a long time, over 20 years, in a variety of roles to include advising, student affairs, career services, and alumni affairs. And then I held a variety of education-related positions prior to that. So excited to be here and really excited to talk to you about our mission today.
And thank you both for joining on. It's rare that we have two leaders with such extensive experience at the same institution joining us. And would love to dig in a little bit to the origin and mission of the university. And Greg, would love to start with you. What was the problem that the university was originally built to solve, especially for military and adult learners?
So the university was originally built to solve the problem of military students in particular that moved around all the time, would go, had to enroll at different institutions as they moved from base to base, deployment to deployment. And every time they moved, they would lose, credit as they moved from one school to the next. So it was very difficult to achieve their goals and graduate with a degree. So we were founded in 1991 by a retired Marine, Jim Etter. And the problem is a very practical one. How do we get these talented, motivated adults that are serving in the military that were being shut out of earning their degree by the systems that were in place at the time? Traditional universities simply weren't designed for people that relocate frequently, deploy, or balance, work and family the way that our service members do. So again, military students moving so often and losing credit when they transferred to a new school made this very difficult. And our mission was to make earning a degree possible for service members and other students like them who are in these type of circumstances.
That's a really helpful context, Greg. And I imagined that serving the military community from the start really shaped your positioning and how you all tackled student support services, everything, admissions.
Yeah, I'm sorry, James. But yeah, it really shaped everything. Our systems, the programs we were offering, and our course schedule. So we have students, to this day that are learning from different time zones. They're based around the world, or they're between deployments. So this kind of forced us to design for flexibility, clarity, and speed. We really couldn't force the students to adapt to us. We couldn't have them log, with a fixed synchronous classroom, and they were forced to log in, at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we had to adapt to them. So everything was built around that model. So, monthly starts in an asynchronous environment are vital to flexibility for this population. And also a lot of our offerings are really not common in the industry. We have, especially at the time the university was built, intelligence studies, homeland security. These type of programs are designed to align with the goals and occupations of service members, and that mindset still drives us today in how we operate. But we're proud to have over 166,000 graduates from over 80 countries. So it's certainly something that we're proud of every day.
And part of your innovation was that you were so early with monthly starts and transcript support. Why were these early innovations so important?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, this was not common in the industry at all. So, but what monthly starts allowed us to do is it allowed students to begin when their time and their schedules allowed, and not necessarily when a semester calendar dictated. And the transcript support was really just as critical. This was not common at the time at all for the universities to go out and at their own expense request transcripts on students' behalf. So, but the students were coming from multiple institutions and they had military training. And in some cases, they were going to 6 or 7 different schools, and acquiring all these transcripts was costly. So by doing this on their behalf, we remove the friction at the very start of their journey, and it basically enabled them to move forward as opposed to getting frustrated by the process. And I'm really glad to see that there are some other institutions that are adopting this model to support students, because I think it's really important. And this is still important to us today because 2/3 of our students are on active duty or are reservists.
Thanks for that, Greg. And I'd love to ask Carolyn some questions as well. Kind of digging in a little bit further on the student side. Who's your core student today?
So our core student is an adult learner. Oftentimes it's a military member or a family of a military member, could be a veteran, a first responder, or a working professional. Our students are highly motivated, but as you can imagine, they are incredibly busy. They are balancing careers, they are balancing family life, service, potentially deployments that are happening, and they're coming to us with a clear goal. They want to finish what they started and they want to earn a meaningful credential. Like Greg said, a lot of students come to us with 6 or 7 transcripts. And so our goal here is for them to complete something, whether it's any sort of credential. Our average age of our 89,000 students today is 34 years old, and then 90% of them are working adults.
What do you think the biggest challenges military members, veterans, and working adults face when returning to school? I mean, it's a very different audience than most institutions are focused on.
Yeah, it is for sure. So we find that time, money, and honestly, decision fatigue are the biggest challenges. These students are navigating lives, like I said, that are already full, and they are trying to reach their academic goals, and it's not easy. So a theme that you'll hear Greg and I both say is the administrative burden. We try really hard to reduce it as much as possible. We find that the biggest barriers are not their academic ability, but really the friction that is built into higher education systems that were not originally designed for them. So things like Greg mentioned, transferring credit, understanding funding options, mapping a efficient path to completion, choosing the right courses at the right time. It all takes constant decisions. And, we try our best to simplify it and give clear guidance so that decision paralysis isn't something that slows their momentum.
And you serve both military and civilian audiences under AMU and APU, respectively. Why was it so important to differentiate those experiences?
Yeah, well, because their needs and what resonates with them are truly different. Military students often navigate unique realities such as deployments, frequent relocations, family responsibilities, service-specific benefits, military training that translates into academic credit. They value oftentimes clarity, speed to degree, and then systems that can adapt quickly to their changing circumstances. And then conversely, our civilian students, while equally goal driven, they are balancing long-term careers, family responsibilities, and traditional financial aid pathways. They engage differently with messaging around career mobility, affordability, time to completion. And by distinguishing AMU and APU, we're able to design enrollment, communication, support models that reflect those distinct differences. And it's really important to us to not dilute the message for either of our audiences.
I think that's a great approach, and I think the differentiation approach is definitely student centric and definitely creates a much better experience for everyone involved. And as part of that experience, Greg, I'd love to come back to you a bit on the admissions and enrollment evolution. Historically, when you look at admissions, it was more one size fits all. What changed?
Yeah, I mean that's 100% right. I mean, we originally had a essentially one size fits all model with all of our admissions representatives handling all types of students. And similar to what Carolyn just said, we realized that the personalization matters. Not just in messaging, but in outcomes and who students are working with. So over time, it evolved over time, but we moved away from that singular approach and built teams that understand the needs of different populations and have the training to serve them. So we have a team that handles our traditional population of service members, veterans, and military spouses and military dependents, as well as a team that handles specifically non-military students and students that are a little farther away from our traditional military population. So that really allows us to guide students more effectively from the beginning, and our staff can concentrate on students where they have the subject matter expertise, the training to truly connect with them and offer exemplary service.
And when you think about building a streamlined enrollment experience for students, what does it truly look like today, especially for your military students?
I mean, it really just means fewer handoffs, more self-service, faster answers, and a lot less guesswork. I said this at the beginning of the call, but many of our systems were really designed to serve military students specifically, and there were service mechanisms that were built in from the very beginning. So our students can self-serve where it makes sense, but there is staff support where it matters the most, and those connections matter. So we proactively handle the transcript collection. We clarify the funding early for them and remove the unnecessary steps so students can focus on starting, not navigating the administration and bureaucracy, and our staff can make the connections that really matter.
And when you think about transfer credit, obviously a very, very important part of your student experience, it's often very confusing. How are you helping students maximize their prior learning and avoid losing momentum?
Yeah, I mean, so we were certainly not the only one, but we were one of the leaders in the industry as far as evaluating and applying transfer credit for military training and learning as transfer credit toward earning a degree. And we continue to emphasize that today. Like I said before, we request transcripts for students, including joint services transcripts, and prioritize evaluations for new military students who really only have their JSTs in a lot of cases. So our transfer credit teams work to ensure that these students have the ability to get a preliminary evaluation to ensure they have a good idea of what they're eligible for before they apply. And like I said, as far as the actual evaluations, we complete the transfer credit evaluations as early as possible, and with that mindset that prior learning should count. So whether the credits come from other institutions or military experience, we want to make sure that students aren't repeating work that they've already done. And that early clarity helps students see that clear path to completion.
That's a helpful overview, and I'd love to keep heading a little further into the funnel on student success and retention. And Caroline, over to you again. You overhauled the student journey from was probably a more reactive model to something that's a lot more proactive. What was broken before?
So maybe not quite broken, but we love a good, better, best approach here at APUS, and we are constantly looking at how we can improve our service experience. And then, like we've mentioned in the past, remove those administrative burdens from our students. So we took a long, hard look at the registration experience and made some pretty important changes. Previously, registration was more what I would say a la carte. Students had the flexibility to enroll in almost any course as long as prerequisites and other special circumstances were met. But they didn't always know what was offered next without having to click on many courses, or what they should take next, or how their decisions could potentially impact graduation, funding, and time to completion. So support was primarily reactive, responding to emails, phone calls, and chats when students hit a hurdle. We quickly realized that early proactive guidance was critical, especially during the first term for our students. And that realization drove the creation of our single point of contact first term advising team, giving students one trusted advisor to help them plan and build momentum from day one.
And I think one of the things that you all do that is very unique are your program pathways. What are they, and how do they help students plan confidently?
Yeah, absolutely. So our program pathways take the guesswork out of course planning. New to the university students receive a clear, personalized roadmap based on their academic program, their academic goals, their transfer credits that have been awarded, what funding they are using, because there are variances between the funding sources, and then their target graduation date. So all of that information is used to kind of map out their best path to graduation. How can they optimize their schedule so that they can get there faster within their timeline, meeting all funding requirements and, prerequisites and course order and things like that. So each semester, courses are proactively recommended by their single point of contact advisor, and then students can confirm and approve, and then their advisor can go ahead and we call it white glove registration service. They'll place the registration on their behalf with approval, of course. So this means that students do not have to wonder about what is coming next, or am I making the right choice? Is this the right next course for me? Every step is super clear, and from day one, they know exactly how they are going to make it to the finish line within their timeline.
And you said something around the single point of contact model. I'd love to unpack a little bit. It's something that I think stood out a lot when
Yeah.
we first chatted. And how does that work? How does it support students in their first year?
Yeah, so this is my favorite topic. So sorry if I'm long-winded here. Um, for the first 8 months of the student's experience at APUS, they work with one dedicated advisor. And like I said, they map out their first 2 semesters in advance. So that advisor will reach out every month. And then every other month, they will say, hey, here are your next 2 courses. Can I go ahead and get you registered? And it is done very simply. Um, they also get a success pathway, which includes just-in-time tips, tools, essential information to ensure that students are set up for success directly from the start. We find sometimes we want to give everybody all the information all at once. And, while that may work for some students, we find giving it to them in the right moment makes more sense, so that it is more digestible and it's like, okay, here's the task at hand right now. And then just like our brick and mortar counterparts, belonging matters at AMU and APU. So connecting students early and often to co-curricular opportunities is a top priority for us. Their advisor throughout their first 2 terms will talk to them about student organizations that align with the degree program that they're in. They'll offer up peer mentoring, the directory, wellness resources, career link, along with many other initiatives and programs that we have, just reinforcing that they are part of a supportive academic community and they are not navigating the journey alone, which is important when you are going to school online. Ultimately, our goal in the first year is to build trust, reduce uncertainty, and make sure students know that we have their back every step of the way. And then at the end of their first 2 terms, which is 8 months here, they transition to our school-based group advising model. They're not starting over. The remainder of their program is already clearly mapped out in an easy to follow pathway. But having this model allows us to maintain strong, consistent sport that is scalable and making sure that our students continue to follow a set, clear academic plan all the way through to completion. So we're really proud of what we've created and developed here.
Yeah, and I think it shows in your long-term improvement on a 1 year retention basis. You've seen kind of a really nice long-term trend there. What's driving it?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen incredible results, primarily driven by an established advisor who engages with the student early and often, and then the implementation of our program pathway, which details out the clear and easy to follow path to degree completion. Um, I think it's important when students know exactly what's next, how they're paying for it, who to contact, they tend to stay engaged. So we've spent years intentionally removing friction, and that has shown up in sustained retention gains over time. We're really proud of that.
Yeah, the amount of personalization and work that you all have put into creating a really wonderful student experience is really impressive. And
Yeah.
I think part of that really ties into, the nuts and bolts of how it works for a student as well. I'd love to chat a little bit about affordability, operations, and where you're headed in the future. And Greg, I think back to you for a question. You haven't raised tuition for military students in over 20 years, which just flies directly against most of the institutions in the world, right? Why make that commitment?
So affordability is part of the mission. Serving military students means making some hard internal choices so we can keep that tuition stable. Access should be real, not theoretical, and controlling the costs are essential to that promise. So this means making some hard choices and ensuring that our staffing is fairly lean from the perspective of schools our size.
Yeah, when you talk about lean, I mean, how does a lean operating model influence how you serve students?
Well, we're very intentional about staffing and service design. So being lean forces us to focus on what truly adds value to students. So that means automation, that means smart workflows, and targeted outreach to allow us to provide strong support without passing those costs off to the student and needing to increase tuition.
Makes sense, Craig. And tying it back to the single point of contact model, you're still able to provide a very high quality experience for the student without kind of the cost implications that would typically come with that sort of support system. So kudos to all of y'all driving that. And Carolyn, back to you. Where does automation and AI fit into the future of your student experience?
Oh, we love AI and we love automation. So this goes back to my earlier comment about our good, better, best approach. We've worked really hard to implement manual improvements. AI and automation are going to take those improvements from better, what is clearly better, to best. We are particularly excited about our degree planning tool. That is phase 2 of the program pathways. So instead of it being manually created by an academic advisor, it is an online dynamic planner that will automatically sequence the remaining courses, factoring all the things that the advisor was doing. So prereqs, their transfer credit, are they full or part-time? What funding limitations may they have? What is their ideal graduation date? How can we keep them on track with that? It also will provide what if functionality, which essentially will look at transfer credits and APUS credits and then provide recommendations on programs that could perhaps help them maximize their credit award. They'll be able to compare programs to each other, which is really exciting. We are also redesigning the student portal to be more personalized with just-in-time experiences that surface the next best action and allows for improved self-service. That's really important to our university. We are also laser focused on preparing students to use AI effectively in their lives and careers. We now have 3 embedded skills. They are called APUS signature skills. They are on digital literacy, critical thinking, and growth mindset in core courses across all of our programs, which is pretty cool. So we have many, many AI and automation based projects in the works, and we're super pumped about the improvements that are coming not only to the student experience, but also to the staff experience as well.
Yeah, and I think part of building kind of a best-in-class tech right now is that student expectations are evolving as well with it. How are you adapting beyond traditional phone-heavy support?
Yeah, so our students expect digital omni-channel support. So we are modernizing our communication strategies to deliver the right message through the right channel at the right time. We are expanding self-service options and then also technology-enabled communication. So it's super important that we ensure students receive the information that they need when they need it in the way that they prefer to receive it. So lots of movement happening there.
Thank you for digging into that. And Greg, I've got one last question for you to close us out. For someone who's listening, who's juggling work, family, military service, why is this a place where they can realistically succeed?
Because the institution was built for people like them. So every system, every service, every decision is designed to remove barriers, not add them for students. So we don't just open the door to higher education. We walk alongside students all the way to completion, and we're proud to serve them.
Greg, Carolyn, thank you both very much for joining us today on the Outcomes podcast. Thrilled to have such seasoned leaders with experience in a single university for a long period of time. Really love the approach to technology and innovation that y'all are driving while pairing it with really strong student outcomes, tuition control, and everything. Thank you both for joining on, and look forward to our next podcast.
Thanks,
Thanks all.
James. Appreciate it.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it.